some level of governance. And governance is all about leadership of the organization. And the essence of good leadership is to be able to provide direction for the organization and the employees within the organization. And when you look at the structure, maybe for governance in our country, we have the legislature, which is in charge of coming up with laws and the legal frameworks. And sometimes also they come up with the organizational framework. And legislature here, we are talking about the parliament. So every rule or every law must pass through parliament for purposes of maybe discussing. And later, after the discussion, then they can give the president to assent to such certain laws. And that is why when you look at last week, last week, the president assented to the finance bill, which was controversial anyway, but it still passed. Then we have the executive also, which is in charge of running the operations of government, the day-to-day operations of government. And the executive is made up of the president and the ministers and other officers of government. Then we have the judicial processes, and judicial is in charge of the courts, where they listen to various pleas of people or companies and come up with the judgment on the same. So governance is very critical, because if you don't have good governance, then it means you will not be able to succeed as an organization. Look at organizations that have embraced the issue of governance at the top. Those firms are doing better. For example, Safaricom is doing better because of the leadership at the top. And if the leadership at the top is okay, then it means each and every other thing is going to be in place, regardless of who is below the leader at the top. So leadership is very, very important. And the aim of leadership is to ensure that everything that is in that organization, every project is delivered on time, every project is delivered at the right time and the right place and in the right form. And by so doing, therefore, we are going to experience some changes in the organization. Then good governance also helps in ensuring that each and every person who is in that organization has different roles and responsibility. This will help to enhance the performance of this organization. So it is important to ensure that each and every person knows their roles and they are doing their best to ensure at the end of the day, their roles they are working effectively for purposes of increasing performance. Then the other thing is about change. In the event we have change in the organization, once you know your role, it is very easy for you to adapt to the changes in the environment, to the changes in what is happening within the organization. Then the other thing we must understand today is the characteristics of small, medium enterprise in supply chain management. Remember, for our business also to survive, they must embrace supply chain management. And supply chain management is an end-to-end process where we involve suppliers and at the same time we involve customers to an end-to-end process. And also supply chain helps to ensure that we have flow of information, both from the supplier side and the customer side. And at the same time, we have feedback from the customer, which goes back up to the supplier. And at the same time, the supplier can communicate in case they have changes in their product so that customers are able to know what they have for them. Then we are also talking about flow of goods or services. And flow of goods and services can also be in two directions, where we have basically in one direction, where we have flow of raw materials from the supplier to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer does what is called value addition. Then once the goods are good, the finished goods are ready, they are taken to the customer, who then will consume those goods. Therefore, what are the characteristics of small medium enterprises? The supply chain involves small medium enterprises will differ from those of the large organizations. This is because, large organizations' supply chain is very complex compared to these small organizations. Then we are saying we have different tiers of suppliers in complex organization, where we have the first tier, the second tier, and the third tier. And the third tier basically are the suppliers of the suppliers of the suppliers. So you find that we have the farmer, then immediately after the farmer, we have small suppliers. Then we have bigger suppliers who now supply to the manufacturing farm. And therefore, then we have now the manufacturing farm. And within the manufacturing organization, we also have other processes that are very, very critical. But when you look at small, medium enterprises, you realize because of their size of the organization, then goods and services normally move very fast compared to this big organization, because we have a lot of chain within the big organization. Then we are talking about the choice. When we are looking at small, medium enterprises, you realize that they have limited choices to choose from because of their capacity and because of the nature of business that they do. But when you look at big firms, they have a lot of options. They have a lot of suppliers. Therefore, they do not depend on only one supplier to supply such goods. And also sometimes because of capacity, you'll find that big organizations are able to outsource their products, where they outsource the non-core activities to other firms for purposes of reducing their cost or for purposes of specialization. But these bigger organizations, smaller organizations, because of lack of capacity or because of lack of finances, they cannot be able to outsource some activities, because they are trying their level best at least to grow. Therefore, it becomes very difficult for them to embrace outsourcing. Then sometimes you find that these small manufacturers also do not have capacity to produce products because of the demand, which might overwhelm them. Therefore, sometimes they also depend on big manufacturers in case they want finished products. Then the other thing is that when you look at small, medium enterprises, they are very near to their customers because they interact with their customers on day-to-day basis. But when you look at big manufacturing firms or big firms, sometimes they use even agents or they use intermediaries for purposes of moving their products to their customers. So it might be very limited for them to meet their customers on a day-to-day basis. And also, they also know their customers even by name. But when you look at big firms, sometimes it might be difficult even to know how they are dealing with customers. Then the other issue that we are also looking at is the issue of technical and production. When you look at big firms, you find that they have a lot of infrastructure, and this infrastructure will help them to boost their productivity and to boost their production at the end of the day. So you find that they will be able to produce depending on the demand that they have on the side of customers. But when you look at small, medium enterprises, then they do not have a lot of capacity in production. Therefore, they might end up not delivering to their core objective. Then the issue of disadvantaged group, you find that most small, medium enterprises fall under the small and the disadvantaged groups because of maybe the legality of different countries' rules and regulations. Therefore, they might be in that special category, but because of big organizations which have capacity, they can be able to negotiate with the government, and they can be able to get big tenders. But for the small, medium farms, it might become impossible because they need to also prove that indeed they can do what it takes to provide services to the organization. So what are the benefits of small, medium enterprise to the public? So the first benefit that we can look at is the generating of employment and raising of household income. So because of the nature of small, medium enterprises, you find that most people nowadays are employed by the small, medium enterprises or the informal settlements, informal sector, where they have a lot of numbers in terms of the people who are employed in those areas. Then they provide a source of goods and services. Look at the Juakali sector, for example. They have been able to produce goods and also offer services maybe to the government and other sectors of the economy. Look at this. They've been able to produce goods, for example, chairs for the CBC and other form of goods, or also provision of services. Look at the Matatu sector, for example. They have also been able to provide services for purposes of getting profits and at the same time building their capacity. Then they are also driving competition and innovation. They have been able to provide alternatives to these big organizations. And by so doing, then we are saying they have been able to drive competition to the best of their ability. And innovation also, coming up with new ideas and offering solutions, also has been part of their day-to-day activities. And they are offering solution in the sense that they are coming up with different applications, they are coming up with different ideas for purposes of improving their services and for purposes of retaining their customers, therefore increasing innovation. Then we are introducing new business methods, products, and services. Because of the issue of technology advancement and the world global economy, which is growing, they've been able to shift their business methods and production methods for purposes of coming up with new business ideas that will fit in the modern society and enhance product and services. Then the other thing is enhancing enterprise culture. And culture, we are saying, is a pattern of behavior which has been practiced over time. Therefore, when you look at most small, medium enterprises, they've come up with their own culture of doing things, which is very, very unique. And this also has shaped what organizations are also doing, these big organizations, because they are trying their level best to ensure that as much as we have small, medium enterprises, they can also introduce their own culture that will shape or how they do things within the organization. Then driving industrialization playing a critical role in foreign exchange. So because of industrialization, you find that they've been able to increase their exports, and by so doing, the issue of foreign exchange also is very, very effective, because the more you increase the exports, the more you also need some other currencies to be able to export some of these items to other markets. Then stimulating growth and development of particular in rural areas. Because of county governments and the initiative by government to promote small, medium enterprises, there has been some issues of growth and development in the industry of small, medium enterprises. Then contemplating the process of adjustment to large enterprises by bringing linkage for products and services. So small, medium enterprises have created a link of small and big enterprises. So they're acting as the bridge to link customers to the bigger farms or organizations. They form dynamic supply chain linkage between small-scale producers and lucrative urban, national, or export markets. So they've been able to embrace all that. The other thing we will talk about is government policy on small, medium enterprises and its ability to spur small, medium growth. So what is the role of government in coming up with policies? In 2000, the government came up with a framework, and this framework was also included in the Vision 2030 for purposes of ensuring that we had an enabling environment for small, medium enterprises to start business and grow the business. But however, we had some issues that led to the Vision 2030 slowing down. And some of these challenges were the weak business regulatory framework. We did not have a good framework that was introduced under the different circular papers that were introduced. Their main focus, however, was on other issues, but this also led to a weaker business regulatory framework. Then the issue of infrastructure, as much as the government had good intentions in ensuring that we had small, medium enterprises, they did not even invest in infrastructure that was going to support the small, medium enterprises to realize their potential or realize their ability. Then the other thing is the market access. Sometimes you find that big organizations are trying their level best to lock their competitors who are trying to come up with a superior product than them. And this will limit their market access for small, medium enterprises, which is affecting how they operate. Because of the resources that they have, they end up locking themselves so that nobody will enter that market, or no small, medium enterprise is going to access such markets. And this also will hinder their growth as small, medium enterprises. Then the other thing that is very critical is business skill development. You find that as much as these people are doing business, they do not have the skills that are relevant for purposes of doing that business. Therefore, at the end of the day, you start a business and it does not survive the first 5 years. Then we are looking at low utilization of information and communication technology. Some people are so reluctant and they do not want to embrace the use of ICT in doing their business. Then by so doing, it means that it becomes very difficult even to adapt to new challenges or to new markets, because ICT will help you to increase your business in terms of the market share. Then we are talking about low capacity in market development. So you find that we do not have capacity to develop in the market space, and this will hinder the growth of some of these small, medium enterprises. Then the last one is limited access to finance and credit. You find that they have a limited source of financing their business, and some banks are reluctant even to give you finances to start your business. And this also affects the small, medium enterprises. The government came up with other laws, basically in the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015, for purposes of supporting this category of women, youth, and people living with disability and small enterprises. And the essence was to be able to set aside a certain percentage for purposes of ensuring that they're taken into consideration when it comes to government procurement. The main focus basically was to empower this category so that they can realize their dreams and realize their purpose of doing business. And that is why when you look at the government portals, it is very easy to access information if you want to participate in a particular bid or tender. Then information also is considered as power, because once you have information, then you can easily control or manipulate the world. So that is the end of that chapter. Let us go to the next chapter. Just a minute.